I'm not going to sit here and try and summarize this morning's presentation, so we had a huge variety of information presented. Obviously, I want to try and keep the focus on climate-related issues in terms of fisheries management. That's our main topic here. So I really would like to just open up the floor in general. First of all, just by saying I'd like to try for us to focus on management challenges. What are the management challenges to ensure the sustainable use of resources in relation in particular to what we know and what we have still yet to discover about the impacts of climate change in particular. The other thing I think would be useful, in particular for the organisers who want to look at the concept of a knowledge hub in the Faroe Islands, the tacit idea, is can we try and focus on what are the research priorities that we need to look at. We've had some specific ideas. I think Chalmar's idea of collaboration between, quite specific idea of collaboration between science and industry on finding fish and saving oil was an interesting one that might generate some more discussion. But obviously there are potential for connections between ongoing projects in different countries in the region. So management, what do we need that we don't already have in terms of dealing with the uncertainty of climate change and its effects on resources? And secondly, where should we be focusing our science and research resources, and how can we identify what we need to use to collaborate across the region? I think perhaps to try and kick off the management discussion, I'd like to just go back to the presentation we had first this morning, and that was Michaela Askan and her conclusions. And one of those was, I think the very last one on the list was that given the conditions in the Northeast Atlantic, low diversity and various other factors that are related to the ecosystem and how it is likely to react to climate changes, we need to strengthen the precautionary approach in fisheries management and practice. This was a conclusion that we had presented this morning. I wonder, perhaps, Michaela, if you wanted to expand on that, we could see if that could generate some views from the floor. Do we, sorry, just practically, do we have a cordless microphone to pass around, or, sorry? Okay, we have.
Do you hear me now? Yeah. I stressed 3 points. The one was that the uncertainty is increasing, therefore we need more precaution, to be more precautious. I also stated that there's been work done showing that actually fisheries has more impact on the ecosystem than the prognosis on temperature that we have. And finally I said this is something we can do now. Concerning the management regimes, I think it's very much the question of defining the objective of the ecosystem, on the ecosystem as a biological system, but also the natural kind of the society around us. How many people do we want in our society, and are they supposed to target one or several species? And we should agree upon that. I think it's very hard, it's very often difficult to agree on if we should have whalers, people fishing, some cod fishers, and people fishing on crustaceans. And politicians and the society is usually just happy looking at the revenue and how much we can earn. And to do this, I think that the governance and the regime, the management regime, has to be on the right scale. It has to be on the local scale. And in that sense, the REX in the EU at the moment is a good example of how you can handle it. The example from the North Norwegian area, where we are fishing down cod stocks in the local fjords, is an example of how we're not able to handle it, because the scale of which we are managing is too high up in the system. So I think the question is actually to decide on the objectives and on the scale of this. And I don't know. I think the Faroe Islands would be a good case study, actually, to decide on and integrate this process. And often we talk about the co-management and including the fishers and the industry into the decision making. But on the other hand, some people say the only way of doing this is to shuffle the burden of proof to the fishers. So you're not allowed to go there before you can prove that you're not doing anything bad. That's quite a thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Please, yes. Thank you. Two very pertinent questions. Chalmar, do you want to try responding to the first one?
What has been done, this is called operational oceanography, when you have real-time information from the oceans. They've done it in the Pacific Ocean and other places. In the first, it has been done, I think it's called Christian Martin, British guy, which has approached the pelagic fisheries.
Institute down in South America, based on remote sensing, so information from the satellites, which they have given the pelagic fisheries to see if they can do better. And I don't think it really worked, because we have lots of clouds and so on, so you cannot rely on satellites themselves. In what I'm just outlining is just my thoughts is that if you use his approach in addition to these sea gliders and maybe high-resolution ocean modeling, put all that together, you can approach reality, and then it might be a reality that you can actually pinpoint where the probability of finding fish is largest. So it has been done, but just vaguely so far.
And the second question was, how could Faroes, Norway and Iceland benefit from the common fisheries policy? I understood you.
Well, I think the simple answer is right now you don't. I would not recommend anybody to sign up to the common fisheries policy as it stands right now. But I think long term, I think we've got to look longer term on this, especially with climate change in the background. The question has to be, and ask any Norwegian about imports of salmon to the EU, and the benefits of being part of our structure become that much more urgent. As the EU has expanded to 27, 28, 29, 30 countries, it's moving away from you. And I made this point in Iceland a couple of weeks ago when I was in Reykjavik at the Alþingi. You're in danger of slipping off the agenda altogether. And in terms of trade, in terms of the issues about actually where do you put where is the market for your product? Don't assume it's going to stay the same forever. And I think the closer you are to the reforms that are happening, the better those reforms will actually be. And from a Scottish perspective, you'd be able to really help us out of a hole as well. And I think there's a real scope for us to together make a real difference to how the EU does its fisheries management. Precisely because it's not a priority for a number of member states, if a credible group of countries, states, do make this a priority, it's very persuasive and very powerful within Brussels. So I think the two-word summary, the two-line summary is don't assume it's going to stay the same forever, and who's your biggest market?